Have we got a show for you? Lil Sean.
Drop.
Broccoli, celery, gotta be VeggieTales. Lima beans, collard greens, peachy keen, VeggieTales. Cauliflower, sweet and sour, half an hour, VeggieTales. VeggieTales, VeggieTales, it's time for VeggieTales. Throwback, Sunday school.
Easter? I hardly even know her.
I thought we weren't eating anything leaven this week.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'm Michael Ruffino.
And I'm Liz Birdie.
And have we got a show for you? This is our Easter special, and I know what you're saying. It's like, well, Easter was last Sunday. Not if you're Orthodox.
Or, isn't it? What is today?
We're recording early on a Monday. Liz is foggy because
I don't know what's happening. It's 7 a.m.
Liz was like, "Can we record earlier?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Why?" He's like, "Oh, I'm getting married." I was like,
Surprise! Surprise!
Mazel tov.
You come to me this day of my own wedding. You asked me to record a podcast. And I said, sure.
Yeah, why not? We got an hour.
Yeah. To talk about an Easter Carol, which is Phil Vischer's parody of Scrooged.
Yeah. I did see he was one of the writers, and I did notice some Vischerian touches.
This was the most Phil Vischer thing. I was not worried, but a little worried. Not that the episodes we watched recently haven't been good. They've been very good. But I was a little concerned about the content being post-Vischer. And then about 10 minutes in, I was like, hey, Phil.
He's still here.
What's up, Phil?
Yeah, this was, we're going back a little bit. This one was the one that came out right, I think, after Schnoodle's Tale, or before Schnoodle's Tale.
I can't remember.
And the chronology of it. But we left it and came back for Easter.
Yeah, which made sense.
Yeah,
all things considered.
Do the Easter episodes around Easter.
That was an NPR joke.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're also being quiet today.
It's our NPR.
Because it's early in the morning. And now taking it back to you, the local NPR stations.
You want me to hear my impression of an NPR war zone?
Go on.
We're live on the ground.
I'm Anderson Cooper.
Anyway.
Easter Carol.
An Easter Carol.
It's just us. There's no guest.
There are no guests.
Because it's we're just a chill.
Because no one would agree to be with us at 8 a.m. on this day of my own wedding.
It's a busy week for us all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bread didn't rise. Jesus did. I had to make a chuppah.
Hoppa.
Hey.
That was again for the Greek Orthodox.
The Greek Orthodox and the Jews listening. That was our Venn diagram crossover. Okay.
And you can't leave out the Russian Orthodox, or you can't leave out the Russian Orthodox. Shout out Adam Kondra.
Let's cold call Adam Kondra to be on the show right now.
He's probably at school.
He's going to be very upset if we call him.
Perhaps even teaching.
Yeah.
So yes, this is the first Easter video from VeggieTales. This is a sequel to The Star of Christmas, so there are pre-established characters that we are returning to.
Which I was unaware of, but I don't think it mattered.
Yeah, not really, no. It was Mr. Nezer's character is new.
I just accepted everything as it was.
Yeah.
And I will say this is probably the only Easter media I have ever seen.
Other than Jesus Christ Superstar.
That doesn't count.
Right, well, there's no resurrection, so.
I don't count that. That's just a very good musical.
You ever get Mel Gibson curious?
That's not like an Easter. It's not like an Easter movie. I don't think.
It starts on Palm Sunday.
Do people like watch it as an Easter thing?
Some do. I remember.
Okay, I could see that.
Remember Andrew Lloyd Webber, like the Really Useful group, posted it to YouTube for Easter.
Okay.
During the pandemic.
I just watch it whenever I want to see angels in bikinis, but
no, they posted the more recent productions. I think it was the Tim Minchin one.
Okay.
The Forster one.
I said that makes sense. Okay.
But yeah.
So this is the second piece of Easter media I've ever seen.
The second ever. Oh, you never got Passion Curious?
So in college for Jesus in film and media, There was a viewing of The Passion of the Christ, and that was the one and only film in which I kind of jokingly got a rabbinic note to not watch, but also I was like, I don't want to do that to myself. My friend Molly, who also took the class, did watch it, and I asked her what her experience was as a fellow Jew at the school, and she said, I don't know, I don't get what everyone's so I didn't get the appeal. It was fine. I just
I heard
that was my Molly impression.
yeah,
for
it was a
the
good Molly impression.
only person listening who would appreciate it. It was okay.
Yeah, there she is. It's like she's sitting right here.
It is. Mhm.
Somebody mentioned, I think it was on social media, that like that movie would not have gotten made if Saw wasn't such a big hit. And it's kind of like a gory, horrific.
So it was like an alternate Christian media for lovers of the gore porn.
Well, like it focuses so much on the Good Friday part of it. Like it goes on for so long, and it goes into extreme detail of the torture. That the only thing to really compare it to is like a torture horror movie.
Okay, that's interesting.
It is a tough watch, and it has him walking out of the tomb as the last shot of the movie, but it doesn't go into anything that happens after him walking out of the tomb. It doesn't even have Mary showing up at the.
I think that would be a fun watch if I could get like a bootleg version and if it wasn't like synced up properly. This is my ideal way to view this film.
This is not seeming as.
I don't want anyone who worked on it to financially.
They do have They do have a sequence where the Pharisees literally have demon eyes and are cackling.
Oh wow!
That happens.
Okay.
And there is like an evil woman, Satan, with an evil child.
Wait, I have seen The Last Temptation of Christ.
Baby.
That's a good.
That's better.
That's good. That's a good one. Is that Easter media? I don't consider that Easter media. Here's what I want to. What is the distinction? Right. So like, I think
if Jesus is crucified, it's Easter media.
It's an Easter media. Okay. Because like, I don't know. I think I'm asking questions that are irrelevant to the show at the moment.
Okay, well, I'm thinking since we have no guest and no backstory for the guest, when is the first time that you heard the good news, Liz?
When I.
What's your relationship with Jesus like?
So my mother loved the film Jesus Christ Superstar, like the film, right? She also liked the show, but that was less accessible when I was a child, and she would listen to the soundtrack all the time, and the music in it is just so good.
It's the best thing Andrew Lloyd Webber ever wrote.
So good. So like we would listen to that all the time, but it was more, this is Twyla Tharp choreography. Like there's history to the, because we would often do the double feature of like Jesus Christ Superstar and the film version of Hair, which were both Twyla Tharp choreographies. So like there was more focus on Twyla Tharp than anything.
So like to you, Jesus was about as real as like Curly in Oklahoma.
Right. And then I think when I was in high school telling somebody how much I loved Jesus Christ Superstar as a film, as a Broadway show, because I'd seen a couple of productions by high school. They were like, that's so weird that you love that so much. And I was like, but the music's incredible, and as a storytelling, like it's an incredible feat of storytelling through music. Like it really I think one of the things I've always like had issues with like concept albums is I'm like, if you wanted to write a show, just write a show, So that was like my version of a high concept album, which I think a lot of people were doing kind of around like the mid 2000s, 2010s. And I just could never like get into it. But this was
Hades Town was a pretty good concept album,
which was a show,
an amazing show.
Yeah,
a pretty good concept album, an amazing show.
Right, and I would rather have an amazing show. Right, yeah. So I think that was, and then when I was generally. So I wrote in high school. I went to an art school, and my novel that I was writing for my senior project, right, was about, it was very complicated, very convoluted, but it was about a boy who was living in the Bessarabian province with his family. They were of political importance up until a lot of like pogroms in Chisinau. So they escape. On the boat, he befriends an Italian Catholic boy, and this boy is kind of descending into madness. And then when he arrives in the United States, he kind of like goes on. He's really like breaking from reality in his visions and his descent into madness and psychosis. Believes he's being called to be a saint. And he becomes like it was my retelling of mermaids without Cher. So he becomes like really fascinated by the saints. And to do that, I researched the saints quite a bit. And then that was kind of my introduction into learning about Christianity academically. So that was when I was like really, really interested in like my gateway was kind of like learning about the Shroud of Turin and learning about these like artifacts. And that was like when I was like, okay, I think I need to read the New Testament. Cause my memory of reading the New Testament in high school is very, very fuzzy, but I did it for research for this novel that I was writing. And then I didn't really re-encounter it until college. And I took a couple, like I took Jesus in Film, Media and Literature. I took, I think like New Testament and Beauty, which was an interesting class. Like there were a couple, I didn't take a lot of New Testament courses. And I think I've said on the show before, like I was really more interested in learning about like Eastern religions, more interested in Islam, like academically, trying to study Christianity academically at a traditionally Methodist school while I was an Orthodox Jew was a little bit of a challenge for me. And I was not like far removed enough from the content, I think, to delve into it a little bit more. So everything, every way that I've really engaged with it has been very academic. I think a lot of times when I was like younger and somebody would like mention the Easter story, it was either joking because I grew, was a younger child at peak edgy atheist South Park era. So like a lot of that content was just very like glib and crude and like not, I think it was easier to just kind of opt out of that entirely than have to try and pick apart culturally what was going on.
Yeah, Christianity was just kind of something that other people did over there.
Yeah, and like the Christopher Hitchens era was definitely not a good time to try and talk to people in my life to be like, okay, tell me why this is important to you without it becoming either like really defensive or somebody thinking you had ulterior motives. Not that was something that I was trying to necessarily do at a certain time in my life anyway. I think because of that era that I grew up in, a lot of the reason that I was so fascinated in Christianity academically, especially in college, was just because of that culture that I grew up in, where it was just everything was disingenuous.
And it's a good question. Have you ever been to a Christian church service?
So I have. When it was my first year of college, my roommates wanted to go to an Easter service as a joke, essentially. And they were like, come with us, it'll be very funny. And I was like, sure, why not? Whatever. So we like dressed in all black and like, what are these 3 queers doing at this church? And one of them's a Jew. How edgy and funny, because that was the era. And we just went into a random church, and the pastor, minister, whatever he was, the speaking man, was a convert from Islam who had grown up in Iran and gave a really good and very interesting sermon that wasn't necessarily like preachy. Like it was one of the most fascinating things because like we went in being just, cynical and kind of, you can, it just little brats, and we left like, that was actually incredibly interesting and insightful. And like he did speak about I don't think any of us really remembered too much about what he had said once he started like getting into like biblical text. But there wasn't a lot of music. I think we went in thinking that we would see something like, I thought we were expecting something Righteous Gemstones, and we got like a really good TED talk, essentially. And then we left and we were like, well, we're all assholes. Like, it was fascinating. And like I said, I can't remember his name or the church, and I wish I could, but
where was this?
This was in Birmingham.
Okay.
And I cannot for the life of me remember where, because I had come home for spring break.
Because I remember you used to live across from Prince of Peace.
Yes. I've only ever been to a funeral service there. But like I said, I cannot remember what church it was. And maybe I'll do some research. But yeah, no, it was fascinating. It was actually very insightful. It was very interesting. But that was the only like Eastery thing. And I was asking a coworker recently, because he grew up, he still is, like very, I can't remember what type of Protestant he is. But I was like, a lot of my...
Here's some tells. Do they sing?
I don't know.
It's always like a flow chart, a Protestant flow chart of like what.
He seems like he sings. I don't know. I gotta ask him again. I think he said something about Reform. I can't remember the rest.
Methodist.
I cannot remember.
Schism recently.
But I was asking because I was really more interested in like, how busy are we going to be this weekend? And I was like, do people travel? And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, do people travel to like see their family on Easter? I was like, my current like point of reference, I've had a lot of Catholic friends and a lot of like Orthodox friends. And for them, like Easter's like a travel worthy occasion. So I don't know if people are going to be like out of town or not, as we're not in a very heavily Catholic area. And we're not in a very heavily Orthodox area. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm not really sure what is the level of importance. And he was saying, like he would and has traveled for Easter. And I was like, I'm not trying to tell anyone how to do their religion, but to me, like I would travel for Rosh Hashanah, I would travel for Passover. So it would make sense to me that like Christmas and Easter, because they say Christmas, Easter, Christians, right? It was like, that seems like it would hold similar, like the same weight. And then we had this conversation before I watched this episode, and I was like, it's weird to me that I feel like from the outside looking in, Christmas is more important because of the way that it's been commodified. Yeah. And it's been harder to commodify Easter. So Easter is less important, in my view, from the outside looking into people, because you're not expecting, to all gather around and watch a warm, fuzzy film and like give gifts, and like that's harder to, there's not a market for that in the same way.
Yeah, Christmas carries more, I'd say, cachet in American culture specifically, because there is a truly secular way to celebrate it. Yeah. Actually, I brought this up when I was just riffing at the comedy show yesterday. Easter is kind of the only Christian holiday that has, even though there's been an attempt to try to commodify it with the baskets and the eggs and stuff, peeps and all that. It's still,
as somebody who really loves rabbit motifs, I will say I do hit up that Easter discount bin right after quite often. But
today's the day. Yeah. But it is still through and throughout a Christian holiday that's not been, there is not really much of a secular way to celebrate it. Mm-hmm. Because it still involves dressing up and going to church. Right.
I always am every year I look out into dining rooms and see entire families in matching pastels. I'm like, this is horrifying.
You're like
this is two step for me.
Morticia being like,
Debbie, pastels. Horrifying every year. I'm like, what is this? Catholic Easter is so goth and so metal.
Well, Catholic Good Friday
Okay, whichever one.
The more metal
they do
one.
it in a way where I respect it. I'm like, this is the proper amount of morbidity that I like. This is the aesthetic that I am here for. And then all of these families in their little white sandals, and I'm like, I don't want to see your toes, sir.
Yeah, Catholics do the Good Friday service, and evangelicals and Protestants tend not to do a service on Good Friday. They tend to do just the Easter Sunday. You know, and I think the Good Friday service is part of it because the suffering is a part of it.
The suffering for me is seeing your prairie dress.
Your toes.
Your prairie dresses. Your poofies. No.
Your pastels.
Come on. Come on now. Springs and florals for Easter. How innovative.
You're just miffed because you can't wear black out in the sun for too long without perspiring.
I can't be out in the sun. I don't know what you're
I
doing.
can't.
I can't go out.
I'm the tribe that burns.
Yeah. I go, if I can't wear a tracksuit, I'm not going.
An Easter Carol.
An Easter Carol.
No countertop. We go straight in.
Yeah.
We got 49 minutes.
Okay.
And wrap it, let's go. We got songs.
Yeah. We do have songs. Laura Carrot is Cockney now.
Just for this episode.
Okay, sure.
You know,
she's a good actress.
She's playing a role.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Mr. Nezer is playing Mr. Nezer.
Yeah. Ebenezer Nezer, which is very funny. Double Nezer Nezi. Laura's selling lilies.
Was that a Dickensian era thing that they did?
So I did not. All right, here's a fun fact. That peace lily right there, the one sitting right there. There were a bunch of peace lilies on sale at my local flower and plant shop. And I was like, oh, that's a nice plant. That's a lot of plant. It was huge. It was a huge plant for like $5. And I was like, I'm going to buy this $5 giant plant and like propagate. Like, this is a deal. Like, I can do so much with this. So I bought like 2 of them. One did not survive. But I was going through, I bring them up to the counter and I was like, look at all this plant that I'm buying for like $10. This is crazy. This is a steal. This should not be legal. This is crazy, right? Mm-hmm. And the cash register person was like, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, oh. And she's looking at me sympathetically and confusedly. And I was like, what are you? They're just nice plants. And she's like, oh, most people buy these for funerals. And I was like, that's so strange. Why? And she was like, I don't really know, but most people who buy these are going to funerals, like on their way to a funeral. And I was like, huh. So I looked it up, and it's a very common Christian funeral thing to bring peace lilies in particular because they're very sturdy, but lilies just in general because they do symbolize new life. I started reading the Wikipedia page for lilies and I was like, I don't have 45 years to read this. But yeah, no, it's a big symbol for like renewed life, new life after death. There's a lot of Christian symbolism behind it, which is so while watching this, and Mr. Nezer is like, it's so delicate, it dies. I was like, see, that's exactly Mr. Nezer. That's why Jews put rocks on graves and not flowers. I was like, this is why Jews don't really do flowers that often. Like, we like sturdy plants. We like an etrog. We like a lulav. We like a rock.
Snake plant.
Yeah, that's something we cannot kill. But, but when we put like rocks on graves, it is because they don't die and they don't need to be moved. You're not adding more death. You're just, matter cannot be created or destroyed.
More of the earth, condemned to the earth. Right.
And you can physically see, like, if there's like a stack of rocks, people visit it. It's like a very, again, it's timeless. It's from the earth. It's you're not bringing more death to the grave. You're just acknowledging the grave. So when Mr. Nezer was like, it'll be gone tomorrow, it's too fragile, I was like, exactly. And then he whipped out that plastic Easter egg and I was like, hey, Phil Fisher.
There he is.
There he is.
There's
from the line, it's pretty, it's plastic. I was like, Phil wrote this.
That's our man.
That's Matt. That's Phil. There he is. Look at him.
He's back.
Look at him go. And then I was like, you know what? Because I'm not going to say that I was not. except I didn't have any particular thoughts or feelings going into watching this episode. I think I could have. There was the potential for that. I was like, whatever, I'm open to it. And it started, and I was like, what are they gonna do with this? And then
a good idea.
Oh, and I did not expect myself to so readily just be like, yes.
Yeah.
Because the second they were like, no plastic, I was like, we're getting Phil Vischer, we're getting anti-capitalism, we're getting environmentalism, we're getting
the same factory set from
the same factory, we're getting a little Marxist fairy tale right here, and
the imagery of mechanical chickens,
yes,
giving plastic eggs,
and like I love that. So I mean, I'm gonna get ahead of myself here, right? But like the thing that I love about this episode, because I did really love this episode, it was very funny. There are really good moments. Like I said, it just seemed like a Scrooged parody, which was fun. But I think with a lot of, it's almost like a lot of like Shakespeare, where he's using like, pre-Christian imagery to like tell a moral, right? Like there's a lot of ways that you can use religiosity to kind of be that like fabulistic method through which you're going to like tell the story that you want to tell. And right. And if you're watching this from kind of an outsider perspective, this is, and it's, I think, true with a lot of the Phil Vischer joints, and like with The Toy That Saved Christmas, if you watch this as, again, kind of a Marxist fairy tale, it works beautifully. It's such a good, just an hour long full of, it's The Toy That Saved Christmas. You're just reinforcing this idea that like, consumer goods are not going to keep anyone alive. They're not going to make you happy. And this comes out, there's a webcomic, and I meant to look it up before this to like get the artist's name, but I was watching a webcomic about cleaning out a hoarder grandmother's apartment. And there's a few panels where they're talking about how when the grandmother was alive, she was so afraid of death and so afraid of losing people and losing things. And part of her hoarding was just this inability to accept death. And if you hold on to things, they, will remain forever. I can't throw this away because that's an ending, and how like people get so caught up in, this idea of immortality through object, and how cleaning this apartment was just like this catharsis and this like release. And she didn't really accept her grandmother's death until she cleaned out this apartment and got to throw all this junk away. And it was a way, and at the end of it, she says, cleaning out the apartment not only like let me accept that my grandmother's gone, but it also let my grandmother die. And reading that and then watching this like the next day was like a really interesting companion piece, because the theme of being horrified of death, which is a really interesting way to handle this in a children's
this
media
is the
piece.
first VeggieTales
That grapples with death
that
like
talks
this.
about death, yeah.
And that death is spoken about very openly, which I guess it would have to given the content, but also how, a lot of children deal with grandparents passing, and how it's okay. And holding on to the material things isn't going to keep somebody alive. Again, a beautiful Marxist fairy tale.
Keeping the business going is not. I do have more to say about Grandma Nezra. I do like the way that they handle that. But let's get into some plot background. Ebenezer Nezer is the factory owner. He runs a Easter egg making factory
with little mechanical chickens.
It's a great visual.
It was incredible.
Boyds, if you will.
Boyds. Birds.
The music, man. We got trouble right here. And he is going to. He owns so much of the land and the town. Mm-hmm. This is a sequel to Christmas, the Star of Christmas. So this is the little Dickensian town. Yeah, and he owns so much of the land that on Easter Sunday he's going to bulldoze the church to build Easterland.
This is what's the Jimmy Stewart Christmas movie?
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, is that Dickensian? Is that? No,
it takes place in the then modern day.
But is it based on A Christmas Carol?
No, it's an original story.
Okay, because like there's a lot of A Wonderful Life in this also, I think.
It
is based off of A Christmas Carol. That's why. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, Easter Carol is based off Christmas Carol.
And It's a Wonderful Life is based off of A Christmas Carol also.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I just read that. Just now on Wikipedia.
Because there is a VeggieTales episode
with a citation. So
there is a VeggieTales episode that parodies and kind of adapts It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay. Yeah, they're all related. So okay.
So he's going to bulldoze the church and build Easterland, which is an Easter-themed theme park with Easter celebrate every day. But of course, it's only eggs and candy and bunnies and not the true meaning of Easter.
I like to think it's a jab at Disney parks.
There was at one point going to be VeggieTales characters in a theme park. I don't remember which one, but there were talks.
Huh.
I think it might have been like a Christian theme park that would have had the VeggieTales characters as kind of their Knott's Berry Farm peanuts, if you will. But that did not happen.
Huh. I mean, if you're going to be at a theme park, Knott's Berry Farms is probably an okay one. I don't know anything about the theme park industry.
There are already Bob and Larry walk around characters, though. I don't know if there still are.
That's fine, I guess. But I mean, I think
they're famously at the Heineke wedding, of course.
True. Which, if you want to show up later today dressed as, pick your vegetable. I know.
I'll dig through. I'll find some church basement and find I found the.
Yeah.
I'll be Bob.
But
I'll be Bob. Andy Bates can be Larry.
Yeah, together.
Yeah.
You could be Bob sat on top of Larry to climb over the
on the seesaw.
Yeah. Yeah. But the idea of I've been kind of deep. I'm very fascinated because I've worked with one, and just seeing one up close has been a strange. The idea of like the Disney adult has been just a central like academic study of mine that I've been privately pursuing for like a while now because I'm very interested in it as a phenomenon.
It's a fairly recent phenomenon,
and it goes past that millennial nostalgia and how there's been generations of Disney adults. We just haven't been as like open. It's just more out in the open now, I think. But the way that this park is like this place of hope for a lot of people, and it is the place of my identity, but also like my inner child can only be saved through.
There's community I mean, it kind of is a church.
It kind of is
for the Disney
and
adults.
It's so, like I said, watching this with the concept of like how Disneyland is this pilgrimage for so many people. I was like, this is
there is a brass statue of Mickey and Walt that is kind of,
and to kind
dare
of
I say golden calf,
keep it right, and to keep into this theme of like material object will not stop death.
Yeah,
and how the materialism of Disney as a concept, but also like especially with the park, seems to be this like nothing bad can happen. You literally can't die at the park.
Yeah.
You are literally if you have Disney Plus, you cannot die at the park, and it's a form of immortality, and it is a form of timelessness, and that like, you're willing to sacrifice so much, and you're willing to, people are willing to go to pretty extreme lengths to like feed this idea of youthfulness and this like magic that I think Nezer is also chasing with his park. So
with his park and with keeping, I mean, it's what he says at the beginning. He loved his grandmother. He had a great relationship with his grandmother who loved Easter.
Yeah.
And she had the egg business. She built up the egg business and lived to be over 100 and loved Easter. And when she passed away, he said that, well, now by keeping the company running, she can live forever.
Yeah.
And completely, missing the point of, and this is what I loved about the way they wrote her character, is because in a Christmas Carol, Marley just kind of shows up and is not really mentioned for the rest of it. Like, don't be like me. Bye. Yeah. And in this parody adaptation, sort of. His grandmother is functionally Marley in the story, but she comes back at the end to be like, I built this business and used the profits to make the community better.
Yeah.
To build the church and build the stained glass that ended up being what told him the story of the real story of Easter. And I like that through line, and I like that character.
I think, I also going in and watching this kind of like with that concept of letting someone live forever from like through business. This came out in 2004. Just where like in our current climate where we're at with all of these monsters using their immeasurable wealth to try to achieve immortality either through technology or through physical means. And I was listening to the Holy Post episode not too long ago where they were talking about how I think like Meta or whoever is using AI to like give people a way to talk to their dead relatives, and like how holding on to people like this is so unhealthy, and trying to achieve immortality is so unhealthy. You just end up like the elves who just don't care, like it's not
immortality is a curse.
It's a curse, I not to quote Tolkien, but death is a gift given to men and women, but
I can't bear to see you grow old and you die and I stay the same and I keep having to go on forever and ever and ever. Quote the Doctor.
Right.
Doctor Who? I'll get into that later.
What are the Twilight people's names?
Twilight.
I don't know anything about that. I thought it would be funny, but I think I would have to know more about how Twilight works for me to make a Twilight joke there.
I read half of the first book.
I couldn't do that to myself because I was edgy.
I was curious, like, what's the appeal? And I read it. I'm like, I'm not me.
The moment that I think I was watching like The Daily Show or something, and it was dropped that Stephanie Meyer was Mormon. I was like, that's off the table.
It was. I was talking to a friend when that came out, and he brought up the point that Edward is kind of the perfect Mormon boy.
Yeah.
Backflips and all. He'll tumble for you.
Little Donny Osmond. Not all Mormons were off the table.
Top 5 more.
We stand
Brandon Flowers.
We stand Donnie in this house. Okay.
Donnie Joseph and his amazing hair. Technicolor hair.
His wigs for days.
his wig and his open shirt.
I really appreciated how they maintained his like widow's peak hairline through that wig. That was
nothing but the best from the really useful group.
Okay, so we
yes, okay. So he's gonna bulldoze the church.
Yeah.
And it's the same church from the Star of Christmas with the same minister. I'm assuming it's an Anglican church because the minister's married and has a son.
That's what I said. I was like, hello, England. I said, I'm so glad that we're using the golden ruler set to show that Dad Asparagus is an Anglican priest.
Yeah, specifically. And so he's going to bulldoze the church to build Easterland. And well, I love they have Junior's character is sick.
Yeah, with what?
He was just coughing. I assumed it was hay fever since it's Easter.
I mean, if you're coughing and it's like Victorian England, that does mean you're already dead.
Yeah, you're more or less imminent.
You just have dying death disease and it's coming for you.
And Bob and Larry have their subplot as the same characters from the Star of Christmas. Comically
what
trying
did
to.
What did I write
What'd you write about Bob and Larry? What did you say about Bob and Larry?
He said, you naughty boys burnt down a theater.
Yeah, they did. Spoilers.
Is this in a Star?
This is in the Star of Christmas.
Watching this without that context, I think. Because it didn't occur to me to even ask. I like the idea that they're just like, we burned down a theater because it's so in character. It was like, of course they did.
But it was an accident.
I was just like, when they were like, we got to work this job because we burned down a theater. I was like, I don't need any more information.
Yeah. See, this is like seeing Mo and the Big Exit without having seen Little Joe, so you don't know the
I was like, those two little rascals
those two scamps
would burn down a theater. Yeah. It's like,
and so yes, they get that, and they are kind of the Cratchit replacements, sort of, along with the minister.
sure.
They're kind of all three of them are co-Cratchiting.
Co-Cratchiting, yeah. Okay.
Bob,
Mm-hmm.
Cratchit, Bob.
Yep. Yeah.
It was Bob. And so okay, but it's I guess Holy Saturday, and so
I guess I liked that the line from Larry where he's like, I can't ask him. Bob's like, he's your uncle, and then Larry's like, that doesn't mean he likes me.
Yeah.
It's like, that's so real, Larry.
Indeed.
And that was when we got Bob saying, look, Milward, we've been working for your uncle for more than a year now to pay him back for burning down his theater, right? Right. And I was like, that's, yep.
Exposition.
Okay. Cool. Like I said, that told me everything I needed to know. I'm like, you boys.
And well, I do also love that the way that the minister gets involved in the plot is that he goes to invite Mr. Nezzer to the Easter services,
because he's gonna go himself because everyone sees him as this, like, grump.
Yeah, like, well, let's reach out to him.
Yeah, I liked that part quite a bit. I was like, that's nice. That's nice.
And that's when he learns of the plan. At 8 a.m. tomorrow, the church is coming down.
Yeah. What construction crew works on a Sunday?
Peas.
Okay.
The French.
Oh, of course it's the French.
We just love to tear things down. That is what we do.
Then I say that I got my taxes done on Easter Sunday, so I guess anything is possible.
So that evening, Ebenezer falls asleep and has a vision.
Yes.
And I love that Grandma Nezzer is specific. Is like, I am not a ghost. Ghosts are not real. You're having a vision.
And I wrote, what about the Holy Ghost?
Doesn't count. That's a colloquialism.
And then I was like, I've got a lot of questions that I am not going to go seeking answers to at the moment. Because I thought it was interesting when she was like, no, we don't believe in ghosts. I was like, that's either a funny bit or a deeper theological thing that I don't have time for at the moment.
We can talk about Elijah later on, can't we?
I mean, the Jewish concept of ghosts is like weird.
Yeah. Where do you stand on bustin', Liz?
So Dybbuk's are like a Yiddish folk creature more than anything, and like different, cultural Jews have different cultural concepts of phantasms and spirits, and when we say like the ghost of Elijah, like the ghost of Miriam, they're not.
Well, Elijah didn't technically die.
Right. I was going to say, so like,
ascended straight to heaven.
And not so much like it, right. So like ghost is like a weird.
So the Witch of Endor, I guess, pulled him in the flesh back from heaven.
Lucky him.
And then he's like, I don't want to be here. I want to go back.
Yeah. There's a lot of different. I don't know. Honestly, it's not something we think about too much.
Yeah. So no ghosts.
There's ghosts, but like not like spooks. There's not like haunts. There's not like visions, but also it's not like, unless you're like super orthodox, it's not going to offend anyone if there's like a ghost in a piece of media, as evidenced by our famous ghost from Asera. But again, that's more of like a Yiddish folk Dybbuk. Yeah. And the folk Dybbuk is almost like an Irish banshee. Not necessarily to announce a death, but to announce very much like this, to kind of be a vision, to kind of be a warning. And I think a lot of cultures have that. I think a lot of cultures have that because I mean, it is very common. It's a human thing to have a dream of someone who is no longer with us. Whether it's someone you've moved away from or someone who has actually died, you will dream about those people. And brains are complicated, strange things, and oftentimes there is some sort of vision attached to it. So I think culturally you do see that as kind of like a piece of folklore throughout the world. And so like what is ghost, what is vision, there is kind of a fine line, which is what another reason why I was kind of like, this could just be like a funny bit, and it could just be like, you know, you read into it what you read into it, and that's like an interesting way to be like a touchstone for anyone watching this, but also an interesting inversion on the classic story. So it part of me felt like it was like a bit as like a Dickensian reference, just to be like, there's no ghosts, you know, like as like a haha Charles Dickens, you know, like so I took it as like a little jab at Dickens more than anything. But then I was like, wait, what is the relationship to like supernatural phenomenon? What is considered supernatural phenomenon? And I was like, that's not a question for right now.
Yeah.
Dear readers,
which is tonight you're going to be taken on a vision quest of sorts to learn the true meaning of Easter.
And then this is where we just get Scrooged. Carol Kane shows up.
Yeah. I like this is one of the, I think this is the second ever humanoid.
I got a little jump scared, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh, that's a person.
It's a small egg person.
And then I was like, I guess we had like a person in The Toy That Saved Christmas.
A similar kind of toy porcelain.
And I think I was like, okay, it's interesting having humans kind of be the vessels for stories directly Jesus-y, because all of our other like everything else is purely vegetable. But like in The Toy That Saved Christmas, we have the humanoid toy being the way in which we have this conversation. And but there was also part of me was like, is this because canonically the vegetables cannot, is it because canonically the vegetables are damned?
Well,
is this because the vegetables have no souls and can be saved that we need a human? But also like at that point, that's where we do get into Kant and Hume, and like what is the point? But
we'll get to
okay.
I said I had a sneaking, before we started the recording, I had a sneaking suspicion what Liz's single problem with this episode would be. Yeah. And we're going to get to it.
And it was not the humanoid. Like I said, I was more comfortable with it after the first 30 seconds. And I think Nezer being like, are you a bug? It was like, that was my same thought. I was like, what is going on here? Like, why is this not like a cute little, like, I don't know, blueberry fairy or something? Like, what is...
Voiced by Rebecca St. James, a Christian artist, singer.
That is a very drag queen name. I was like, do I know her?
She's a very good singer.
Oh yeah, no, she had a beautiful voice.
I was going to say her voice acting is a little flat. Yeah. But the song she sang was the best song of the whole thing.
Hey, she had a beautiful voice. I was like, oh, this sounds like a professional, not just like, not that the songs in VeggieTales are bad, but like you're doing character acting at the same time. So like there's a different level of vocal performance that you do there. You know, like that's it. But yeah, I was like, this is not Lisa Vischer doing a beautiful Junior Asparagus.
Yeah. You know, doing the junior voice.
Yeah, not doing the, to quote Ezra Brown, the little gremlin voice, the little goblin voice. This is like
it's not Phil singing as, you know, Mr. Lunt.
Yeah, no, this was like a song by like a professional. And then I was also like, is this, what accent is this? And I was like, this is...
It is her speaking voice. Because I remember she was English.
Yeah. Is she... I know. Okay, she is Australian. I was like, this was an Australian accent for sure. Right. And I was like, this is... Because I was like, is this a voice actor from the studio doing like a really bad British accent, or it's coming out Australian, or is this an Australian accent? I was like, oh, it's just an Australian accent. Yeah. Okay.
And she's a CCM artist, contemporary Christian music.
Okay. Okay. So no, Hope, the little fairy named Hope.
She's our ghosts.
Yes, the voice acting was flat, but it also like wasn't distractingly flat. Yeah. Like there were a few times where it was like, this is a little weird, but I think for what the character was, it worked. I think if she was too cutesy, it wouldn't be impactful.
Yeah, because she does get very serious.
Yeah. So
she's not a comic relief tiny flying fairy.
Right. But like I said, I think she was appropriately abusive, which was why it was like, this is very Carol Kane and Scrooged.
Yeah, well, I like she smacks him on the...
Yeah, which is what she does in Scrooged, where she starts smacking him on the head with her wand when he's not paying attention to her. which is like, I remember watching Scrooge as a child because it just like came on a channel and I didn't know where the remote was. And I was cackling to it, and I didn't understand most of it because I was like a child, and it's like about, businessmen. But I was like, this is so funny. And I remember my mother coming in and being like, oh, it's Carol Kane. She's the best. And I was like, yeah, she's pretty good. This is very funny. And I remember smacking him on the head and being like, oh, I love that, which is a recurring theme. This was first time I read Catch 22. And what's his face getting smacked on the head with a shoe is like, I'm here, I'm in, let's go. I'll read the rest of this book. Yes, give me a good smack on the head. Got my heart.
So the tiny toy wind up figure on the mantelpiece is a fairy named Hope.
Yeah.
And she takes Mr. Ebenezer Nezer, on a quest to the Easter's past first.
I like when they're flying and he smacks into the cross. I don't remember what the line was, but I was like, that's some symbolism. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And I like that he could just get stuck there. Very Scrooged. Same gag.
They go back to Easter Sunday when Mr. Nezer was a boy with his grandma, who's enjoying Easter Sunday service. But Mr. Nezer is, of course, preoccupied with eggs and selling them and making money.
That was me, not gonna lie.
Well, he was wrong. He should have listened to his grandma, as Elder Nezer said. That boy should listen. He's like, well.
Speaking of rocks, this was my scheme in elementary school. Okay, I would find cool rocks. Like, there's this part of the playground that nobody else wanted to go onto because it was like old and like kind of scary, and there was this tree line, and I would go and collect cool rocks from the part of the playground no one wanted to go to, and then I would like clean them up, right, and then I would sell them for like 25 cents to other kids who also wanted cool rocks but didn't want to go to the scary part of the playground. It was a good business
You're like an
idea.
antique dealer for
I really was.
Indiana
I was a rock
Jones.
dealer. I was a quarry man.
You were dealing rocks back in back in elementary school. So as seeing himself younger, lamenting that he should have listened to what his grandmother said now that he doesn't take her presence for granted anymore. They then, and it was at the same church also, that's the church that he's going to bulldoze. And so then he goes a little bit further from the past, a little bit more recent, where this is after his grandmother's passing, right, where he goes to the factory, where they realize that because his grandmother built the company with real chickens, and he realizes he can make more eggs cheaper.
Yeah, he realizes it because he has the conversation with the inventor, who is Pug Rape, and this is
also a character from The Star of Christmas.
this song, this little musical number with the little mechanism was
Boyd's.
Oh, it was so good. This was so good.
It was very Music Man.
It was, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I do love the Music Man, but this was like
Make more Boyd's. Birds.
Boys. Yeah.
Eggs. Lay your eggs.
I love that
eggs.
funky beat. And I was like, I do love this funky beat. I love this so much. This is a great track.
It's
like,
a great number.
It really is. The way that it was done was incredible. It was so smooth.
With the electric, the
Yeah. The way that they have the conversation, like, oh, it was so good. I loved it so much. It was like, this
is our silly song.
In place of a silly song, this is our silly song, and it's so effective. It's so good. And the little beat and the little, like, the aesthetic of the little, like, toy thing going on in the background is like, yep, this is what I want. This is what I come to VeggieTales for.
Oh, and while Mr. Nezer's having his vision quest, I should say Bob and Larry are trying to break into the factory to steal the plans.
But they can't because they're a little incompetent.
No, not quite. They're not very gifted thieves.
No, and this is where we got really well executed physical comedy.
With vegetables.
Yes. And listen, I am a physical comedy kind of gal. I love physical comedy. Maybe it's because I spent so long doing stand-up that
you respect somebody who can pratfall a little bit more.
Like one of the thing in the world, the whole world that will make me laugh time and time again, like the peak of humor, nothing will be funnier, is in Hot Rod where he falls down the hill for like a solid 3 minutes.
So he... Boids. They mechanized the Boids. They turned the Boids into robots. Birds? Boids. And the Boids. How the elephant got in my pajamas, I'll never know.
And then Hope is like, do you even pay him?
I'll get him
an annual pass to Easterland, 10% off at the gift shop. I was like, our villains in today's world were so predictable.
Yeah.
Like, this is horrifying. And then they go outside of the factory. Where do they go? Oh yeah, then we get the seesaw gag.
Yes, in the background. Oh, this is Easter present.
Yeah,
where he sees what the family has been saying about him, and how he's like his grandmother put in the stained glass that he's going to destroy in the morning.
Yes, and he's starting to kind of realize that by so fervently keeping his grandmother alive, he's destroying her.
Yeah, destroying her legacy.
Yeah. He's destroying her
legacy
memory,
was that church and not the business.
Like all these parts of the town, all these things that she cared about, like by focusing on this business and trying to like make this Easterland, which is just going to be this fantastical kind of fluffy nothing version of her, he's tearing down what she actually loved.
This is
much like we've done with our Constitution.
Yeah. But this is a very mature and insightful message for a 45-minute kids video. It packs
a punch. Yeah. It really does. It got a lot in. That's why.
That's when we learned that Junior's sick with I assume hay fever
or death disease.
There's a lot of pollen.
TB.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Coughing. Victorian coughing.
Yeah. Coughing up a little tomato juice over there.
No. Oh, no.
Oh.
Did you just make a vegetable tuberculosis joke?
Yeah.
On our vegetables?
You didn't get that upset when I said that the pizza was blood libel, okay?
Wow.
You'll have sympathy for the little Christian orphan, but
we're not my people.
Okay. Anyway, but this is, like I said, it's a beautiful Marxist fairy tale, and you can't keep people alive through possessions, material goods, and profit, and that art is so important, and art is what tells us about who we are and where we come from.
Yeah, I liked the way that they handled, we can't portray Jesus as a vegetable or tell the story directly. The song in the church with the stained glass
windows was so well done. I was like a little gagged by that. I was like, this is first of all, the thing that like really stood out. I like went back and like double checked because I was like, are we actually legitimately for real in 2004 in a kids animated show about vegetables getting brown Jesus? Yes, we are. Distinctively brown Jesus. In this show, I was like, what is, and of course I've grown to know and love Phil Vischer personally at this point. But
parasocially, through his
parasocially, I know him well enough to like expect that from him. But I was still like, I went back and I was like, this is kind of crazy right now. Like, I don't know. I don't think that I have like a memory as a child seeing just out in the wild depictions of a brown Jesus, and like I still don't see that very often.
It's pretty rare. I mean,
yeah.
Even in the Passion of the Christ, they definitely cashed in on the letting Italians play Jews.
Yeah.
And not vice versa in this case. There's a lot of very Italian looking.
Yeah. But like I went back and I was like really looking at the stained glass images and was like, they did that. Incredible. Wow.
Yeah. It was a great song, a well-written, good song.
Yeah.
Sung well by Rebecca St. James.
Yeah.
And it can like very concisely told the story of Easter and why and the hope behind it. We're getting to it. Hang on. Got to get to the future first.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, because there's like, there are moments like the song where I do have to kind of remember, like, yes, this is like for kids, but it's not. And like
families.
It's a family show. I always have to like kind of, because it was like, if I'm watching this as a kid, this is so boring to me. Like, I do love a stained glass, so like they'd have gotten me there. Okay, like on the weekends when I was a kid, you could catch me at the Winchester Mystery House. I love a stained glass. I love a Tiffany lamp. All right, that's the aesthetic I want in my life. They'd have gotten me with the stained glass windows. Not gonna lie.
Oh, I saw a Tiffany lamp. It was Kermit, a Kermit Tiffany lamp.
Say less. I'm so broke right now. But the sorry. I was like, this song like probably would have bored me to death as a child. And then I was like, maybe it's like really not for the kids. Like, I think the rest of the show is for the kids. I mean, it's there. You're going to be a kid. You're going to be watching it. You're going to be a child that probably loves stained glass windows also. I get it.
They're pretty.
And they're great. So like there's that. But again, it was one of those moments where it's like, oh, it's like not, this is not necessarily for the adults, but there's sometimes where like there's bits in, okay, how do I, when you're a child, right? When you were me as a child and you're listening to like an album because you got your CD player, so you're listening to the whole album and you get to like the slow song and you listen to it, whatever, because you don't want to like get up and skip, but it doesn't mean anything to you. And then when you're older and you go back and listen to that slower song, and you're like, oh, whoa, that's crazy. And now I'm crying. You know, like it's one of those, I think it's one of those like, moments where it's like, they'll probably like stick in your head and you'll remember it for later.
I think they were intentional in placing the song at the big turning point of the story. This is the big beginning of the climax.
Okay, I will say too with the song, and I like wrote this down because I was like, the scene where she's like in the light and like Jesus is like on the cross, whatever. And she keeps like flying in front of him. It was like, ma'am,
please.
That seems a little disrespectful.
Step
like
aside.
you don't put your Sidor like on the bottom of your bookshelf, you know? Like it's like, ma'am, like what are you? Come on.
We know that you're indicating, but please.
She kept like flying in front of the Jesus image, and I was like, oh, is this okay? Like, is this fine? I don't know.
Well, I guess the numerous dense amount of crosses in the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
Because there are crosses everywhere.
Well, they're easy to design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make one, copy paste it.
They're easy to model. Yeah. And also, if you've seen an old church, that's just kind of what's going on.
But so now then, Mr. Nezzer. Wait, okay. Did the song? I think the song happened after the future, right? Though.
No. I don't know.
No, it did. It did. I'm sorry. Because they go to the future without the church. Because he says the church is just keeping people cooped up all day and unable to go out and buy his eggs.
Okay.
And so future without the church and by extension, the hope of Easter.
Okay, because he learns about hope and then they go outside. That's what, because then Laura's selling the pencils, and then this is where we get to the part of the show where I was like, okay.
All right.
Okay.
Remember when Phil in that interview said we're establishing a baseline?
I kept that in mind because I knew you would remind me of that.
We have done so many of these. This is like a chess match where we've already plotted out.
Yeah, and I had to keep that in my head, and I was like, if you're teaching, but at the same time I was like, is this dangerous to teach children? Is this how we? And then I was like, maybe this is just like, because like at the end of the day where I will always kind of like, not necessarily because like and this is not, as we know from the show, like I have close personal friends who consider themselves evangelicals. And I also understand that, okay, What am I trying to say? Respectfully.
I'm grappling with the evangelical label still too, because at one point it meant something.
And I think for me, I understand, like, I think about it a lot when Andy's dad was on the show and he was like, you know, I didn't want to say the word evangelical on the show. And I was like, I understand that. And part of it is because, like, in my life personally, when I hear the word evangelical, I hear you are someone I can't trust because you have ulterior motives and you're not accepting me for who I am. And that's a difficult position to be in, because I'm like, I want to respect you in your faith and I need you to respect me in mine and understand I'm not coming to your side. I don't want you to come to my side, and I'm not coming to your side, and we can butt heads on that if we have to, but I still love you. And it's taken me a long time to kind of try and untangle that definition in my mind. And I go back to the Holy Post. Sky and Caitlin were talking about what it means to be neighbors with someone of a different faith from you, and how, and it was a good conversation, and they were saying good things and about how you need to accept that. And the conversation ended. And again, I very much respect the way both of them think. Like, I'm so jealous of Caitlin Chess's mind, like, in a genuine way. Like, the way she thinks is, like, so incredible. Like, I'm in awe every time I hear her speak on something. She's so eloquent. And then there are times where she'll say something like, at the end of the day, or no, it was Sky who said, you know, at the end of the day, you can, like, love and respect your neighbor of a different faith, and you hope they come to Jesus at the end of the day. And I was like, and I understand that you wouldn't have that evangelical identity if that wasn't your conclusion when having this conversation. And they both kind of were in agreement with that. And I was like, I understand what they're saying, because they did have a long conversation on the show about what the project of evangelicalism is and what it means for a multicultural, multi-plural society. And, like, I had a lot of hope, speaking of hope, listening to their conversation about that, because they were like, no, it is important that we're not all the same and that we don't all follow the same faith. But the goal at the end of the day is for everyone to accept Jesus. And I was like, I think that's just something that I'm going to have to accept that I don't understand. To, like, I understand it, but I think I'm just going to have to kind of, like, say, like, okay, that's your thing. You know, like,
I'm not sure to see if I could put it in a way.
It's a complicated thing.
Yes.
And
well, okay, because Christians are explicitly taught convert people.
That's
the last thing Jesus said before he left.
Right.
He ascended was go and make disciples.
Right.
And that's kind of why Jews as being this ethno-religion, they're not seeking converts really.
Right.
It's more of a heritage. And Christians, because Jesus came to earth, and it's because a relationship with Jesus is possible.
Right.
A direct relationship with God, the Son of God, a more intimate spiritual, I mean, Sky Tony talks about it in With, what that looks like on the day-to-day. But because that's possible, that passion, you want to share that with everybody. Because the only way to have that kind of very intimate spiritual relationship is through the sacrifice, through Jesus' time on earth.
Right.
And so that's why there's that wanting to share it.
Right.
You know? I mean, I could put it in a way that are there parts of your spiritual life that you wish that your atheist friends could have?
So I think that one of the things that I think it's slightly different. So, like, I think there's this understanding, you know, like for me personally, right? I think just who I am as a person, somebody else's belief and somebody else's faith does not, that's their, I don't, do what you want to do, whatever, do what makes you happy. Like, if I think there are times where I'm having a conversation about something where I'm like, the way I have to put it is, like, I personally am a person of faith. I personally have a, you know, strong foundational, unwavering belief that one is Hashem, like that exists for me. And because of that, and because everyone has to be met where they are, and, I don't think, and I am, we have free will, we can do whatever. And because of that, and because that is a good thing, I don't think it's important how somebody else believes or what they believe, as long as there is a way in which they can connect to. And again, this is not any concern of mine. I do believe that in some way, shape, or form, everyone has little snippets of Hashem, right? And I'm going to use Hashem very explicitly because I think when we say God, that's a more American, like Western cultural conception of God, which is and is not the same. Mm-hmm. It contains, but rectangle, square.
So few people can agree on what God is,
right? But and I think I find myself a lot of times when I'm talking to someone either of extremely different faith or someone very atheistic, whatever. Sometimes I just say like the universe, because I think that's more of like where they're going to be at in that conversation, right? Like I can change the language and not think that that's going to affect that doesn't affect my relationship with the way that I consider my relationship with the show. But I do think that when I am trying to explicitly touch on a religious concept or something from my tradition, I think especially for Jews that is such a cultural thing that I feel more like I'm sharing a piece of my culture with someone than my faith.
Yes.
Because my faith and my culture, while they are related, are not the same. And I feel like if I were to share, even, when I say at the beginning of my Passover Seder, because we have a lot of non-Jews that are Seder, we are not proselytizing. We are not asking you to accept all of this as fact. I'm not asking you to do anything except for sit with us and have an experience. I am sharing a piece of my culture that is tied to my religion. And there's a lot like in the Haggadah that I'm like, hey, we can sit here and talk about the interpretation of that all day long. And we could agree, disagree back and forth again and again and again over certain passages. And like, that doesn't change the fact that I want you at my Seder. And you can take or leave these parts. It doesn't really matter. But if I am trying to share something about my actual religion, my actual spiritual faith, I don't think I can. And I think part of that is coming from a culture that does not proselytize. So like that does not make sense to me.
Well, it's almost like someone trying to convert their friends into being Chinese.
Right.
Like I kind of understand that.
I want to share bits and snippets so that we have that mutual understanding. Like I want to share my cultural bits and pieces, but I can't tell you otherwise. So like I said, I think there's just like a thing there that I can't quite.
I can almost compare it to people wanting to share. I would put up with faith and ideology. I mean, people that are proselytizing vegetarians, maybe I think, or practitioners of meditation.
What I kind of see it almost
political Marxists.
I was gonna say it's almost like relationship advice to me.
I'd say relationship advice, and I'd say there's an element of I remember someone said that Marxism is almost like a religion where you see the world this way, you want to evangelize to a degree, and you want to wish that everybody could see.
Okay, I can see that.
Yes.
I also I was gonna say I think with that too, I don't care so much about how people come to, however you want to come to the understanding that capitalism is actually evil. Get there however you need to. And like I'll change my language around how we're going to talk about that depending on the person. Just like if I'm going to say Hashem, God of the universe, I'm going to say like, okay, however you need to come to understanding that like where we're at right now is horrible for the planet and the people and like, however you come to the conclusion that we are at a place right now that is unsustainable and we flew so close to the sun that we didn't even get a chance to fall.
Yeah. Well, and that's how a lot of evangelicals believe, and I would be one to agree that you can proselytize just by example.
Right.
just if you have that spark in you, if you have that light within you, people will ask you why, how can you handle this? Or how do you cope? Or what is that
right.
spark within you?
So I think, I'm sorry I cut you off.
Well, I was going to say, it reminds me of, you might have even seen this clip of Jon Stewart was asked about his religious background, and he says he's more or less an atheist. He's, Jewish only by culture. He doesn't have any faith per se. And he wishes that he could get there. And I kind of look at it as when it comes to the evangelical part of Christianity and wanting to relate to other people, it's like I wish that they all could in a way that some atheists wish that they could too. And it's like, well, I wish that you could also.
I think, so going back to the episode, I think the thing that kind of made it a little bit harder for me to kind of gloss over the future part as, we're going baseline for kids, is because I think I've spoken to so many particularly Christians, and it's not just Christians. I think anyone who's grown up in our American society, which is heavily influenced by this line of Christian thinking, that without Christianity, the world is this just, chaos. And
they don't say without Christianity.
They don't. They say without the
hope of Easter, and they define what the hope of Easter is. Did you catch that part? I'm sure you did.
What would you say? They tell me more.
Yeah. So they say that this is the horrible future of a world without the hope of Easter.
Okay. Would you?
And it is, and I'll describe for the people what it is.
Okay.
It's people are rude to each other, and people. Like someone has something stolen from them, and the constable does not stop the thief.
Right.
Effectively.
Because why risk your life? What would you define as the hope of Easter?
They define the hope of Easter as the hope that there is more to this life than the concrete, than what happens while we are living it, and that there is something beyond our finite existence, basically.
Okay. Which I would say is explicitly Christian.
Yeah, Jews have a concept of an afterlife.
Yeah, but we also don't really know. And that's not, while there is an idea, that's also, and like some sects of Judaism will say like, we know, you're not supposed to, we don't know. Also, that's not the point.
Well, Christians don't know for sure. It's just on faith.
And there, of course, there's the faith aspect. Of course, we don't know for sure, but also like, you're not that hope. So there's two types of hope, right? There's tikkun, and then there's tochlet. So like the tochlet is like that pillar of Judaism that says like there will be Mashiach, right? Okay, and then you have to have like faith in the Mashiach and whatever. Okay, I'm whatevering that because that's just a whole different theological conversation. That's a different type. There's distinctive types, right? Like the concept of hope is broken into branches. Then there's the concept of tikkun, which is more of that like, tikkun olam. All of these like, and tikkun olam to repair the world, right? There's this idea that you need to leave the world a better place than you found it, not necessarily for you, but for your fellow humans and for the next few generations. And what happens to you personally is kind of irrelevant. And to live your life in hope and fear of the afterlife explicitly is to deny the gift of the present that you were given. And whether or not, and I think a lot of the reason that you find a lot of Jews who are like, it doesn't matter if God's here or not. It doesn't matter if you find a lot of like orthodox Jews who are like, God, there's a lot, but you're still going to bring your kids to Hebrew school and you're still going to do, you're still going to give tzedakah, you're still going to do all these things because that idea that like, oh, I'll live on after this, that's about you. That doesn't matter. you got to take you out of this. Like, you share this planet, you share this community, you still go to shul so that you can make the minyan, and that might not even be about you. You don't really matter. You need to go make the minyan for your community. And that is a form of hope that says that this is worth it. And that comes, like I said, tikkun is more from you, the emotional, human person here now, right? And then tochlet is more of God's business. That's God's hope. Like, it's a different category. It's a different type of thing. So like you need to have like several different tenets of it, and like maybe it's a translation thing where like there's different words for hope for these concepts that we're describing here, where this is just general hope that could be a blanket term for several different Hebrew terms, right? Or Greek or whatever. Like there's different like forms of love. There's different forms of hope. So to kind of like bundle it all together, and then like I said, when you walked in and I was like, and you were like, what's the one thing that you thought I had a problem with? And it was this segment, because it was like, I understand to a degree what they're trying to do. I get it. But like I said, I've talked to so many people who are like, oh, well, we didn't have without Christianity, essentially, which again, I'm going to say is the hope of Easter. And to me, again, and that's fine. That's okay, because that's what the episode's about. But this view of just, there's no lilies.
I think it's more broad than that.
Like, and it was such a short segment, and it is for kids, and I could just kind of be like, all right, whatever, and gloss over it. That's fine. I also, like I said, I have talked to so many people who have that line of thinking that, well, if there's no Christianity, the world collapses and falls apart. And it's like, well, the world existed without Christianity for a very long time. And hope is intrinsic to the human condition. It's intrinsic to the human spirit. Everyone throughout time has had hope. There wouldn't be children in the world if there wasn't hope. There wouldn't be the architecture and agriculture. Like, we wouldn't continue to exist as a species without the idea of hope. So to have a world without, the Easter story does not mean in any capacity a world without hope.
Well, it's not specific to the story, because it says more broadly the hope of Easter is the hope that there is more to existence than just this life, that there's something beyond that, and that sacrifices mean something. It's also the central hope that Jesus' sacrifice meant something.
Right. I'm not saying I don't know how to write this differently. I'm not offering any other suggestions.
It's an Easter story. You're a Jew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, especially for me, I think that starts to veer into territory that I'm very, maybe I'm suspicious of, or maybe I think is dangerous at the end of the day. And that trying to conceptualize an alternate, I think, like I said, this is kind of where it gets into that, where I get uncomfortable with evangelicalism, and where I get uncomfortable with this idea that without this like Easter story existing in the world, this is the world. And it's like, I see what they're going. I understand you've got 30 seconds to get this across. Yes. And I do not know how to write this differently. I have no suggestions. I can add a little bit more context than the episode gives too. Is I think a lot of the importance of the Easter story is that one of the central questions of any religion is, why do bad things happen to good people? Right.
Why is there suffering in the world with an all-knowing, all-loving God? Why would they let that happen?
Right.
And to which you would say, and especially highlighted in the Easter story, suffering is a part of life.
Right.
God himself took a human form and came down to earth to live a perfect life and suffer for having done nothing wrong. And so, yes, this is a world with free will. Yes, this is a world where there is suffering, but God knows what it is like to suffer. Mm-hmm. By having been tortured and crucified himself. Mm-hmm. And so part of the central hope of Easter is that God knows more of what it's like to be human and to be mortal. And because he died, he took human form and died. And did that to get closer to humanity. To by taking mortal form and dying, know what it's like and try to be closer to us and form a relationship.
Was it not I who created the deaf and the blind? Anyway.
You know, when he healed a lot of them.
Okay.
And depending on your denomination, still can.
Okay. Then the peas come in to destroy the church.
The peas are he wakes up and does the girl. What day is today?
Yeah.
And he changes his ways and sees what day. It's Easter Sunday. Easter Sunday, and he runs, hops quickly to the church to stop them from destroying the church. The peas. Then
one of the peas, the line that what was my note? Hold on. Oh yeah, when he's like, "You cannot stand in the way of progress." I was like, "Oh, Phil." Like, oh, Phil.
Why has it got to be built? What do you mean? It's a bypass. You got to build bypasses.
And then this was the part, okay, because the factory's on fire, right?
Well, we're going to get to the factory.
Well, the factory's on fire at the same time the church is being destroyed, right? The plots are happening at the same time. Okay. I genuinely, for a split second, not a split pea, but a split second, I thought Bob was going to straight up die. I thought we were going to
kill Bob.
I thought we were going to kill Bob. I thought we were going to learn about the afterlife in real time. Okay. I was like nervous for a minute. I was like,
a character has died, so it does set up this could very well happen.
I was like, my note said, is Bob about to be in a better place?
Bob is hopping off this mortal coil.
I was like, this is crazy. Like,
Bob, no.
I was like, are they killing Bob? Like, what?
Yes, Mr. Nezer let the factory run all night. Everything's overheating and going to blow any minute while Bob is still in there with the plans.
Uh-huh.
And Mr. Nezer manages to stop the destruction of the church.
Well, I think Dad Asparagus is like giving a sermon on...
Oh, he's like the last sermon, the last Easter Sunday.
Yeah, and it's like about death and like...
The
like,
end.
That's why I was like, Bob is about to die.
Bob's gonna die.
I need you to understand how seriously I was.
When did you watch this?
Like in the middle of a day. Okay,
so it wasn't late at night, or you were vulnerable.
No, I was just like, I genuinely thought we were about to like do. I don't know. Okay,
we're gonna kill
I just really need you to understand. I thought we were killing off Bob. With all of the context clues that were happening. If this were like a movie, right? And I'm just like watching, I would be like, oh, this character's about to go. They're about to kill this character off on screen death. No pulse. Like,
there was a big realistic looking explosion, but
yeah.
That was after.
Bob is fine though.
Bob was fine. Mm-hmm. Bob was saved by Mr. Nezer.
He didn't get turned into pizza sauce.
He didn't. He is now crushed tomatoes.
Nope. Nope. He's okay. He got saved by Mr. Nezer.
In a fiery explosion after being launched by the factory equipment out of the window. Mm-hmm. They blow up another factory.
Very Chicken Run.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Mechanical Chicken Run.
Yeah.
Robotic Chicken Run.
Running hen.
Run. All right.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
And so everyone happily ever after.
Yeah.
With, the church is saved and stained glass is saved and grandma's happy.
And then Mr. Nezer, and the part of the way that, again, this episode did such a good job handling death. And he goes to the grave and has accepted her death. And he puts a flower on and he's like smiling and he's visiting with her. He's not mourning her.
Yes.
And like, that was like, I'm like a little teary about that. Like, that was such a good, like the way that was shown, the writing of it, like the way that it was represented, even the music being more uplifting, was so well done. And that he's not holding on to the material things about her death. He's this factory is blown up. He's let it go. He's thrown away all the junk.
You realize what her legacy truly is.
Yeah. And through that allows her to kind of physically die. And then he can go on and just have her memory. And he's no longer beholden to it. He's no longer haunted by her. Mm-hmm. Which is, I was not expecting this episode to be a Marxist fairy tale about accepting death and handling death. And it's wonderful. Like, it was so wonderfully done. Like, I wouldn't, like, if I was to use this episode to teach something, I would use it as a way to, like, if a kid's grandparent had died, be like, this is a wonderful way to learn about going through that mourning process. And, like, you don't have to hold on to that bookmark forever. Like, you can, but, like, there are little things that sometimes that's not the way to go about it. And if you're kind of like mourning something, especially like on your own, that's not always that's not the healthiest way to keep someone alive.
Exactly.
You shouldn't keep them alive.
Yeah. Let them go.
Yeah.
There's no QWERTY, no verse, but I think we had a very good conversation nonetheless.
We did. It went on for so long. We were going to do this as a mini episode, and we've been recording for 2 hours.
It is a full episode.
Yeah.
Congratulations, it's now a full episode.
I will say that when I watched this and you were like, mini episode, I was like, I don't think this is going to be a mini episode. I have a lot of thoughts on this.
But happy Easter to our Orthodox folks.
Yeah, chag sameach.
I hope you enjoyed your previous Easter. No, I think this is the last night of Passover when those will come out, right? More or less.
Last night of Passover is going to be Wednesday.
Yeah, probably.
So,
I hope you enjoyed your Easter,
Yeah.
Protestants and Catholics, and happy Easter, Orthodox. Don't eat too much candy. You'll get a bellyache. And your teeth
don't lick the bunny too much.
Yeah, we don't worship the bunny here.
No.
Not here.
No, we just play a lot of rabbit decks. Got a blue and white rabbit deck. I got a green and red rabbit deck. I got a green, red, and white rabbit deck. I got a mono white rabbit deck. Lots of rabbit decks.
Next week
if you catch me on Magic the Gathering Arena, I got a magic dragon
drop
and rabbit
her
deck.
username.
Oh, it's Trunchfoot.
Back to World War I.
Yeah.
Naturally.
No, my handle's Trunchfoot on everything.
Okay. Well.
All of my game handles are Trunchfoot. And my Pinterest. From when I was a teacher. There's a lot of Hebrew school crafts on it.
Well, here, you got to go get married real quick.
I do have to get married real quick.
Mazel tov.
Thanks.
I'll get you a wedding present someday. One day. Soon-ish. I don't want to go through Amazon, but it's got to get here quickly.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Next is Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And then I think we're back with Gideon after that one. Anyway,
yeah. God made you special and he loves you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.